Hello, friends. I have been getting a lot of questions about behaviors related to preteens and teenagers. And one of the things I wanted to tell you with our children that are on the spectrum or that have any form of special needs is that we have to realize they are just like every other teenager. They need exercise. One of the things that I noticed early on is that our special education classes are built around teaching life skills and basic academics, that they're not necessarily based around sports or PE. Most of our kids start sports pretty early. And even when our kids do adapted PE or they do Special Olympics, those things are happening in very short amounts of times. So even if we have adapted PE a couple times a week, it's usually 30 minutes to an hour. Or if we have Special Olympics, it's usually Saturdays or maybe a couple of practices after school. But if you look at the average 12, 13, 14-year-old child, they're usually in PE every day for an hour. They're usually in sports after school or some form of academic club, something that's going to wear out their energy. And those things are done in routines. So the kids know to expect, hey, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going to be running in gym. Every Saturday, I'm going to have track practice or basketball practice. They always know that they have that expectation. But also, we know that they're going to be worn out. They're going to come home tired and hungry. They're going to eat everything in the house and then they're going to go to sleep. And so, this is kind of how they wear out the energy that's happening when their hormones are changing. So, from my experience, my child went to school. He stayed in a classroom. He later on in life ended up getting a little bit of adaptive PE, but he really wasn't getting the physical stimulation. When he was really young, he was an elopement risk. He ran away all the time. So teachers tended to keep him in one area because that was the safest way to maintain his safety in school. But really, honestly, it was on me to make sure that he was getting his energy out. What was happening was he was coming home, he was watching TV, he was maybe swinging in his sensory swing, but he wasn't really releasing all of the energy that he was building up. His hormones were changing. He couldn't really ask why. When we tried to explain it to him, he really wasn't understanding why. So, what we ended up doing, this was major and it was a small suggestion that I thought, oh, that sounds easy. Wasn't always easy to implement. But we started routine exercises. First, when he was about 12 and 13 years old, we started before school exercises. This helped him manage his behavior in the classroom big time. It would be maybe 10 to 15 minutes of swinging or bouncing on a trampoline. It would be maybe 10 or 15 minutes of going for a walk before he could get on the school bus. And I know that in the mornings it's hectic and sometimes it's hard to even get them to get out of bed and get ready. That was a big deal for my son. Just getting him out of bed was always a hassle. But once we got him out of bed and we started getting him moving and through his morning routine, we added this little bit of exercise. It brought joy to him. It brought comfort to his teachers because when he got to school, he wasn't bouncing off the walls. He was able to sit down in his chair, and then they were able to get more academic structure out of him. So, getting your child into an exercise routine is going to be huge, especially with violent or volatile negative behaviors. After school, going for walks after school, going to the park and going for the swing. If you can't do that and it's a rainy day, they always tell you to use those yoga balls, the occupational therapy balls to play with. And you're like, how is that going to help my child? Believe me, getting your child to bounce up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down on that ball is going to stop your child from doing this or doing this or doing, so just giving your child the way to get rid of and release all of that energy that they are building up all day long is going to stop them from releasing that energy in punches and other ways. If your child, especially your nonverbal children, do not have a way to say what they're feeling, They need to have a way to let it out in order to cope. So that's why trampolines are important. People say, why is it so important for your kid to bounce on a trampoline? What sensory need does that help? Well, it does help your vestibular sensory needs. It does help your proprioceptive sensory needs. But it really also just releases energy that can end up building up in a child and becoming aggressive. Oftentimes, our children want to go and they want to play on YouTube. They want to sit on their pads. They want to watch Disney Channel. And those are okay activities, but they are not the general activities that normal teenage children need to be doing. And we often see our kids playing football, track, PE, all of those things. And our special needs children are not doing that as often. So if you really are having a lot of violent behaviors, you really need to put daily exercise into your routines. Maybe it's a walk at night before bed because they're not sleeping through the night. If they're not sleeping through the night, they're not tired. If they're not tired, you've got to do something to make them tired, even if it makes you tired as well. So that is probably one of my biggest things that I learned to help my son with his violent behaviors, and also to help other people that I've worked with at the summer camp. We have parents come to us and say, okay, my child is on guanfacine and 10X to sleep. My child takes melatonin to sleep. My child is on Benadryl to sleep. And yeah, those things are helpful. But at summer camp, we never have a problem getting children to sleep through the night. Why? Because we are keeping them physically active all day long. They're going for walks, they're swimming in the pool, they're swinging on the swings, they're jumping rope, they're doing whatever things that we can get them to stay active. They're having fun while they're doing it too. So these are good chances to build family memories and help your child have a great time. But it should be done on a routine because our kiddos need routine. I know it's really hard. We have busy, hectic lives. Believe me, I have a very, very busy life. So creating a routine was a little bit difficult for me. I'm all about spontaneity, and my son is all about structure. So getting those things to go together was a little bit hard. But once we put them in there, I found that I actually needed the routine as well. It was good for me. It was a chance for me to say, we're going to go for a walk. When we're done, he's going to take a bath and brush his teeth and go to bed. And guess what? I'm going to have me time. So it was just a way to wind us down. The other thing I wanted to say when we touch on these medications, I was actually talking to a friend about this just yesterday. Some medications, like Benadryl, are known to break the blood brain pathogens, which can cause delusional experiences, hallucinations. Well, here was one of the things. My son was placed on Benadryl at a very young age, and he was placed on something called hydroxyzine. Both those medications work well when a child is young. Benadryl, a lot of our kids have allergies, so Benadryl helped with the allergies. Benadryl is known to make people drowsy, can also have the complete opposite effect and cause our kids to bounce off the walls. So you have to be really careful of that. I've met a lot of individuals on the autism spectrum that will tell me they're allergic to Benadryl. And I believe that, but what I believe the most about that is that it breaks the blood brain barrier. And it took a psychologist to explain this to me when my son was 12 years old, because so many doctors would say, your son has allergies and sleep problems. Take Benadryl. It's over the counter. It's easy to get. It's not going to hurt them. Guess what? My son was hallucinating. He started banging his head into the wall. He was hitting things. When we would put a video camera, when he was in the psychiatric units, and we would put the video camera in there and watch what he's doing, he's grabbing at things in the air. He's talking to voices that aren't there. He's laughing hysterically when nobody's around and nothing's going on. But it was always happening 30 minutes after his Benadryl dose or 30 minutes after a hydroxyzine dose. And then the doctor came to me one day and said, have you ever heard of the blood-brain barrier? When that happens, hallucinations happen. So if your child is experiencing any of those, maybe you need to have a talk with your doctor about the use of Benadryl or hydroxyzine. The other one is the guanfacine and 10X. A lot of our kids are put on guanfacine and 10X when they are little, and that's not a horrible thing, but those things affect blood pressure. What happens is they reduce the blood pressure, which reduces the energy in the body. This makes the child sleepy. This can help the child take naps. This can help the child be calmer in class. This can help the child with some ADHD behaviors without having to be put on a stimulant. So I'm not saying that what doctors are doing is completely wrong. But there are triggers that you need to look for that tell you it's time to talk to your doctor to change that medication because it could be negatively impacting the child's behavior later on in life. For example, if you're extremely groggy and tired, your blood pressure is low, and you're not feeling very well, how are you going to react when people come in and start asking you a bunch of questions or start demanding that you get a bunch of things done? You need to do your homework, but you're so tired, you just really want a nap. You need to play in adaptive PE, but you're so tired, you just feel like a limp noodle. That is a sign that their blood pressure is low, and that can create aggression. What happens is somebody comes to you and they start speaking quickly. They start asking things of you. How are you feeling today? You can't really say how you're feeling. All you know is that you're just bogged down. This means that your blood pressure needs checked regularly because your guanfacine might not be working right for you. This means that the child may be feeling so bogged down that they don't have that zest and energy to make it through the demands of their day. It can also stop or slow down their thinking. So you're asking them two-step directions. Put your shoes by the door, hang your backpack up. They get their shoes by the door. They don't remember what the next step is. They're tired. When that happens, usually they've reached an age category where it's time to change that medication. So I really think that those are things that you need to look for when you're talking about behavior. And the final thing that was the most important in our lives was structure and routine. You hear this so many times with our kiddos. What does that really mean, though? How are we supposed to go to work, get groceries, pay the bills, run our errands, help our other children, be there with our friends, be there with our spouses, if everything has to be routine and structured? Guess what? It does not all have to be routine and structured. The biggest routines and structure that have to happen, your morning routine before school. And I don't just mean make sure to get up, have breakfast, and then go. I mean, everything needs to be routine. In the fashion that you brush your teeth, needs to be a routine fashion. If you put your toothpaste on first and then the next caregiver comes in and has them get their toothbrush wet and then put the toothpaste on, that child might get obsessed with the idea of that's done wrong and you can't move on to the next task. If normally you have the child take a bath in the evening, but this morning you're going to have them take a bath in the morning, you may throw the whole day off because the child's like, wait a minute, I take a bath, then I put my pajamas on and go to bed. So now I took a bath and I put my school clothes on and you're making me go to school. I'm supposed to go to bed. It can become very confusing, and also it can be something that your child becomes obsessed on. Any little changes in the routine. If you normally have breakfast and then you go into the bathroom and brush teeth and put deodorant on, but maybe grandma's babysitting or somebody that's not there normally, and they come in and they say, okay, you're going to get up, brush your teeth, put your deodorant on, then we're going to go have breakfast. Your child's day may be thrown off for the whole day, and you might not see that behavior until 4 or 5 in the afternoon when that child's like, my whole day's just been wrong. Well, it's been wrong because it started off wrong from the beginning. You need to create a very structured morning routine. Put it in writing, hang it up so that anybody who comes in, if there's an emergency and you're too sick, you can't get out of bed, and somebody else has to step in and take care of your child, they can see your exact routine in writing. It's also important when you are sharing custody with your baby's father or your baby's mother, or if a grandparent is stepping in, or maybe you just have a personal assistant coming in and doing respite care. It's very important that everybody is on the same page. So if you have it in writing at one person's house and they go to another person's house for the weekend or after schools, you need to send that same board with them. You need to have a carbon copy of it taken over there so that everybody's doing something the same across the board. It's not just going to be helpful for you, it's helpful for your child and it's helpful for other caregivers. We're called caregivers because we want to do something caring and help. The best way to help is to keep the child's routines. Nighttime routine is the second best routine. If you do not have a good night routine, the child is not going to wind down appropriately. The expectations are not going to be there, and sleeping is not going to happen. So, it is very important at the exact same time every night medications are given. It needs to be given within that 1 hour window. When I got my med tech, they said you have 1 hour before and 1 hour after to give those medicines, or else they're not going to be even in the child's bloodstream. That is extremely important. You cannot do 9 o'clock one night and 7 o'clock the next night, and then 8 o'clock the next night, because it's not going to stay level in the child's bloodstream. Therefore, it's not going to be kicking in at the time that the old medicine is starting to wind out. It is very important that those medications are given at a specific time so that they stay level in the bloodstream, and that helps them to work correctly. It is also important that right after medications, your child knows what's expected next. You cannot give medications and then say go to bed. It takes 30 minutes to an hour before those medications are going to kick in. And you don't want your child sitting in front of a TV right before right before bedtime, because if they're on a TV or a tablet, you're giving a child that already has sensory processing situations going on, and you're adding more sensory to them. You need them to be able to wind their mind down. Sometimes this means reading a book every night before bed. Sometimes this means that's the time for the nice hot bubble bath, because the bubble bath, while the medicines are kicking in and mom's sitting there to make sure that the medicine's not too strong, you don't want them to get too sleepy in a bathtub. You want them to have the observation of knowing that they're safe and they're not going to drown. But just like a warm cup of milk or a hot bubble bath calms you, it's going to calm your children. So usually medications, hot shower, hot bath, pajamas, nice book, all in a structured routine is very important to help your child get to bed and sleep through the night. And it's kind of important for you too, because this is your chance to wind down and calm down. Have you ever gotten your child into bed and then your mind is just racing and you can't get to sleep? Finally, your child goes to bed. Then you finally fall asleep. Next thing you know, your alarm's going off and you're exhausted. You kind of need that routine too. So let's get those structures and routines going inside your household. I would like to see you post your routines in the comments below. Talk about what works, what's not working. Let's get the conversation started. I will post a link about the blood-brain barrier so that people understand exactly what that means. And I will post a link about our routine so that you can see how that goes. Let's get this conversation going. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to you more later.